My name is Dan Ruben. I'm the chair of Green Newton. Green Newton is the largest environmental organization in Newton. I formed the Green Newton Building Standards Committee in the fall of 2018. It's composed of builders, architects, a city planner, and a city councilor. This composition is important because when we meet with developers and their consultants, we talk shop. We talk about building. Our first step in our committee was to establish the principles that we want to implement, and we chose 4. Passive house, electrification of heating, hot water, and cooking. In other words, no on-site burning of fossil fuels, low embodied carbon building materials, and smart growth. Today, I'm just going to focus on passive house and electrification. It's important to understand the context in which we're working. In Newton, there is considerable and well-organized opposition to new developments, and that played a role in persuading the developers to work with us. One of our first actions, and the subject of my talk, was to secure meetings with 2 developers of major projects in our city. One is Riverside, and Massachusetts Clean Energy Center money is, and we will guide them so that they could secure that money. Another important argument is that passive house and electrification and net zero buildings and other green building projects are not new, are no longer new, and that they are indeed the wave of the future. That if these developers build according to these principles, they will have these buildings to show off, and they will have the experience necessary to build even better buildings in the future. Cost, of course, was an issue. We said the first time that developers build passive house buildings, the premiums might be in the mid-single digits. And after that, when they build new buildings, the premiums are likely to be in the 0% to 2% range. If the developers are going to pay some of their utilities for the buildings after they're built, they will recoup their investment and more. Regarding heat pumps are now common in New England developments, and they're cost effective. Heat pumps for hot water are less financially feasible for buildings with over 10 units, but if you avoid bringing in natural gas pipelines, then electric hot water heaters can be feasible. So the results, over time, both developers met us more than halfway. They talked to their consultants, they talked to us for a number of months, and then they agreed to build very green units. Northland committed to 240 passive house units, but after they studied it further, they upped their commitment to 442 passive house units. Riverside will have well over 100 passive house units. Both groups committed to what they call passive house principles, meaning they are those units that won't be passive house will be fairly close to the kinds of numbers that passive house requires. Both projects will be all electric except for restaurant cooking. Both developers gave us no pushback on this, making me realize that they probably would have built all electric buildings with heat pumps, even if we didn't ask. So what did we learn? We learned that the developers are very open to green development once we asked them to do so. They valued our support in the face of anti-development opposition. They realized that they might not get their project approved if they didn't have our support. The developers had some familiarity with passive house and electrification, but they needed some education. And indeed, we helped them. We got MassCEC to pay for most of the courses for their architects and engineers on passive house. Our Green Newton's 4 principles resonated with the developers' architects and with their consultants. Having a committee based of green building professionals was very important. We weren't activists talking to developers, we were builders talking to developers. The Mass Save incentives were very important and very generous. And in the end, the developers felt good themselves about building cutting-edge green buildings. and that they indeed became adherents, and they speak proudly of the kinds of buildings they're going to build. So we encourage Medfield to do like us and require green buildings that your residents will be very proud of.